Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is the Off the Clock podcast. Want to thank everybody for tuning in to our debut one last week. I'm Rick Gorman, and I'm with my fellow host, Scott Chandler. We're back for episode number 2. I think we got some good topics that we want to get after a little bit tonight, and would love your feedback. And by the way, thanks for all the feedback that we got. We got tons of feedback on the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess, but pretty excited with it. So welcome back, Scott. What's up? How was your last week?
Yeah, last week was pretty good. No complaints. I know you gave me some crap last week about the music I listen to or don't listen to. So I just want to let you know I did watch 3 hours of American Idol. So that closed up on Monday. There'll be no spoilers. I won't tell you who won, but I think the highlight of the night for me...
I watched it. I know who won.
Oh, okay. You did watch it.
Yeah.
Okay, geez. I didn't know you did.
Yeah, right. Hannah won. I was going
You're not supposed to give spoilers, dude.
It's already been played.
Well, what if people
knows.
Taped it? Now you're on it.
Now they'll have to deal with that.
Yeah,
they'll have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty good American Idol this year. Read an article that it was the worst one ever. But I guess they say that every year.
The worst overall season?
The worst overall season ever. Read it online yesterday, and then I did see a bunch of people chime in that they kind of say it every year.
Yeah.
I guess they were saying that, there was a real... Hannah they were kind of almost, putting her up to win it, telling everybody what her scores were every week. She obviously hit a connection with a lot of people. She wasn't my favorite, but she was really good.
She was great. Yeah.
Happy for her, and but there were some talented people that, didn't make the top 6, 8 or whatever. But I thought it was pretty good. I mean,
I'm thinking of trying out next year. What do you think?
With that voice, I would totally suggest that you don't do
Imagine
that.
if I started singing and it was like a James Taylor type voice. Because people say I do look like him.
Yeah, you told us the story, which none of us buy, that when you were in Florida for a month, you were at a bar and this person kept looking at you and thought you were James Taylor. I see no connection with James Taylor. Definitely not the voice.
And it wasn't just one person. It was the MC, the guy who was running it, came over to our table and said, "Why don't you sing for us, James?" And people started clapping, and I said, "I don't feel like it today," and people were disappointed.
Wow.
One person actually took my picture and said, "Wow, that really is James Taylor." I go, "I'm not, but you can take my picture."
I don't get it. Was this an elderly community that you were in?
Well, it's Florida, so by definition, it was elderly.
Well, congratulations, JT, and take a couple of singing lessons, and we'll have your debut on the Off the Clock podcast.
That sounds good. Yeah.
All right, so let's get into this week's topic. So one of the things that we spent a lot of time on, and we kind of touched on it last week, is we both like to read, and now in this retirement life, seems like I even have more time to read. I think you were always a pretty big reader, but I turned you on to a book written by Andrew McCarthy, former rom-com actor who is actually an author now for a couple different types of books. But he wrote a book called Who Needs Friends? And we talked about it last week. Bottom line is this whole story starts off with Andrew's son basically saying to him, "Yo, Dad, you don't really have any friends." And it got Andrew thinking a lot about past friendships he's had, and that his life now was just very different, and he had not had connections with a lot of people that he considered unbelievable friends. And he started to embark on pretty much a tour all around the country. And it was twofold. He wanted to definitely reconnect with friends that he had had at a major part of his life. And those stories were great, kind of gave everybody an idea of what their friendship was back when it was, why it maybe kind of drifted. And then throughout the whole thing is Andrew also, he loves breakfast and loves going to diners, and he would always find an opportunity to maybe talk to people and just said, "Listen, can I ask you some questions about friendship?" And he was expecting people to say, "No, I don't want to." And he was impressed with how many people said, "Yeah," and they got to talk. So he got to talk to a lot of different people from all over the country about male friendship. So your review of the book?
Yeah, I thought it was an excellent book. Now, I think there are some components to it that I kind of ask some questions about. Like, why did he have to go on a 3,000, or I think it was more than that, right? 10,000-mile journey overall to connect with friends? Like, did he not have friends at home? Was the friendship he was seeking just these distance friends that he built relationships with them in the past that seemed to mostly be connected to work? Like I think 4 out of the 5 main friends that he speaks about were all work associates who kind of helped him on his path to success. So, I think you start getting into the definition of friendship. What does friendship really mean to people? And did he have the friendships he needed to surround? Did he have the friendships around him to be able to take advantage of them in his day-to-day life? Did he really have to go on that journey to see? How do you react to that? Because I think my definition of friendship are people that help you through the day-to-day. Like, if I have an issue, if I have a problem, somebody I can pick up the phone to or grab a beer with and talk to them and say, hey, this is the issue I'm having, this is what's going on, versus getting in the car and driving to, one of his friends had a heart attack and he didn't even know it. Right. So that's that was kind of odd to me.
So I think one of the things was when his son first said that to him, it got him really thinking. He did talk a little bit about that. He had certain friendships around where he lived, but he actually talked a lot of it was friendships centered around maybe some of his kids' parents, his parents of some of his friends. He talked a little bit about that his social life was more connected a little bit with his wife and things like that. And I agree with you. It's like, why then did he have to go on this road trip? And a little bit was that he reached out to a couple people, if you remember correctly, that basically were like, I don't really have much time to do it. I'm going to be traveling here. I'm going to be doing this. And there was one in particular, the first one, that kind of was just kind of pushing him off, which forced him to basically get in the car and show up at the guy's house unannounced. So, yeah, I think in a lot of ways, I don't know if he had a tremendous amount of what he considered real friendships. I think he had acquaintances. He had people that he kind of enjoyed time with, but I think he was struggling with what is a real friend. You joke a lot about this over the years. If you get a flat tire on 93, which one of the Wildcats are going to call? Which one's going to respond? Which one doesn't respond? And I think in a lot of ways, he kind of looked at it as these were 5 or 6 very important people in his life, but past in his life. Like, as you said, more around as he was growing in to be the actor that he was or whatever. So why did he have to get into the car? I also think he has, his means are a little different than ours, right? So, he can work when he wants to work, or maybe he's not working at all anymore and he's just enjoying this. But he was able to get in the car. I first questioned how his wife and family was good with him taking off for the amount of time he did.
Yeah, and he really doesn't address that. And at some point, too, it was kind of weird. All of a sudden, his wife and I believe his son were going off to Italy, just not spur of the moment. So definitely a different lifestyle than when you used to. But I think you raise a good point. One thing he did mention when he was home, that his social life kind of revolved around his wife's friends. So his wife would make, and he said that was a constant theme in the book when he was talking to people on the road. It was like, all these older people said, no, I really don't have that many friends. My wife takes care of my social calendar, and I do what she wants me to. And I think it highlights the fact that women seem to have a better way of connecting with their friends than guys do. I think it's easier for them. It's easier for them to be open. It's easier for them to tell them your feelings. I've never told you I love you, right? So
I don't know why.
And you would feel weird if I did, and I would feel weird.
No, I wouldn't. I think that's where we're different a little bit.
And I would feel weird saying it. I just did. But on the same token, I've seen my wife say to her friends, I love you, almost every time she gets off the phone with them. So it's a different mindset. There's no question about it, and that truly exists. And in some ways, I think being that open, not being that open, cuts you off to some social means that you probably deny yourself because, you not that you put on a facade, but you're sometimes not totally honest. Like, I've never had a relationship with a friend where I've actually said, hey, what do you think of our relationship? What are you giving a scale of 1 to 10? And I never asked that question. I'm sure you don't. Maybe you do more than I do. But
I would disagree with you on a couple of things. So first of all, I do not have a hard time saying I love you to males, and have done that on a regular basis. I'm also pretty aware.
you've never told me you love me.
Yeah,
that hurts a little.
And you know why? I think I probably said that because you're not. That's not you.
Yeah.
That's not, it's easier for me to say it to some other people that we probably know well together that I can say I love you to that. But the documentation and that women, and I'd love to hear from our women, our female listeners around, that they do have an easier time with friendships. They have an easier time with keeping friendships. One of the things was,
but they work at it harder. So
you got to work at it.
I think saying easier is kind of a tough label. I think that they work at it harder and they make it work. They put in the effort. So friendship's effort. Friendship is, to me, that's why it's hard to make friends, I think, as you get older in life. It's because it's an effort. Sometimes you don't, as you get older, you don't feel like making that effort. So I think there are a lot of components to that. And he highlights that in the book, and that's where the book's excellent, I think. So, and again, it's an unscientific look at friendship, but I think he touches on a lot of real cool stuff.
Yeah, one of the questions he brings up is, do men let friendships pretty much fall apart too much, whereas maybe a female would, see it drifting or whatever and try to bring it back, or at least connect with it. And I think with us as males, I do think there's some truth to that. They talk about atrophy, friendship atrophy, where you just kind of let it go. And, we heard from a lot of the people talking around, that they didn't really need that. And the question, when someone said they didn't really need that, I questioned it, like, well, why? And would have loved to have been in the room and kind of challenged the question on that or whatever. But what was the most, what was your biggest takeaways about male friendship from the book?
Let's go back to what you just said, though. I think sometimes people put on masks, right? So you act like a tough guy. You say, well, what? I'm not going to make this friendship work. I really don't care that much. If he doesn't call me, I'm not going to call him. I don't care anymore. So I think it's easy to put on that mask. But I think that's why there's a certain amount of loneliness, because people don't make the effort. More guys probably than women, kind of let things slide a little bit. So I think that's a real component.
Yeah, no, I definitely do.
Yeah.
What I loved about his journey, in multiple ways. Obviously, he was gone for a couple of months, and the miles he traveled or whatever. What he learned from himself was that that he had let some friendships go, and why did he let it go, and how he wished he didn't let it go, and then the goal was to never let it go from there, to continue to have the relationships. Each one of the people that he had a friendship with were all in different places in life. One was actually dealing with some medical issues and the things like that. So there was a definite, reconnection. And I think all of them, my take was that it was his push to actually connect with this that really got them to realize, yeah, we do need to connect. We do need to do a better job. They did a lot of talking about, just their families and life and everything else. I found some of the most interesting things is when he actually sat with people he didn't know and just kind of threw it out. There was one that I got a kick out of. There was like, and I think I see it a lot of times, even at diners in the morning, 8 or 10 retired guys in their 70s, just sitting down and talking about stuff, and, them pretty much welcoming him to the table. And, he was able to actually ask them questions, and they were brutally honest on stuff. And so I found that just really neat on some of the things of why friendships lacks, why friendships need to be. And each one of these guys that got together, whether it be they get together once a month or once a week or whatever, I think they really got a lot out of it. And then there were other people that didn't have that, and what are they missing?
Yeah, but I think the question is, so the 10 people who did get together in the diner, and people came and go, people talked every week, and some people would show up, some people wouldn't show up. What percentage of those, how many of those 10 would you say are still lonely? Like they're not socially isolated, right? Because they have the diner, they probably have work or whatever other things going on in their life, but that doesn't mean they're not lonely. So how many? I think social isolation is mutually exclusive from loneliness.
Yeah.
So how many of those people would you say were lonely?
I would say, and thinking about all the people he talked to, I would say more people were lonely than not lonely. A couple of the guys, they had full lives, full families. They connected more. They were actually able to say they loved each other, if you remember those two guys. But a lot of the guys went to the diner, but then went home to their life, which they were lonely.
I just want to follow up on that though. But the two guys who said they loved each other, they were older. They were probably, I think they were in their 70s, and they said they got a lot of grief. They said when people, like heads would turn when they told each other they loved each other.
Right.
And they kind of laughed about it. They thought it was funny. But to have that comfort level is pretty cool, right?
But it was also something that grew. They weren't always like that.
Oh, no,
that
of course
was
not.
something
Of course not. Of course
as they're
not.
getting older
Yeah.
and maybe seeing.
Yeah.
And the reality was those two particular had known each other since they were really young, and they kind of developed
I think
different
they grew-
lives and stuff. They kind of
they
grown
grew
up
up together, yeah.
and then totally had reconnected with that whole thing. So
And then one of the guy's wives said, "Hey, you need more." I forget the guy's name, but say it was John. You need more John time. Go to the diner and spend some time with John. I'm sick of you. Get out of the house. So
yeah, and I think for some of those people, it was just a breakfast, an hour, and then they went back. And I would agree with you. I mean, I look at even my own life. When up until 3 months ago, my life was crazy, 7 days a week. Now it's not so much. You start to take a look at stuff, and like the loneliness thing to me is it's really intriguing because I think people in general are a little more lonelier than they admit. And we had an off the air conversation last week that you're not a lonely person at all. And how do you answer that?
yeah, I just want to go back to the prior point too. I think there's a difference between you don't want to confuse being lonely and bored. I think sometimes if you're at home and you're not doing anything and you start thinking too much, then you can confuse the two, right? So, and there are ways to feel, like I said last week, I wasn't bored and I don't feel lonely, and I'm also not bored, but I'm also, my time, if you looked at my time, you would say that's not very constructive. You're watching the second episode of Jeopardy or whatever it is, right? And or Judge Judy. I mean, I don't do that often, but I do that on occasion, right? So I think I don't think you want to confuse loneliness with boredom. But what was your prior question?
And just to touch on that, I don't. It's two distinct different feelings. But loneliness is I'm definitely a guy that I like my private solo time, but I don't love that all the time. And there's some people that just really love their solo time 24/7, or at least most of the day.
That's a good point too. I think there are people that are socially isolated who aren't lonely.
No, yeah, definitely.
Because they're happy being introverts, right?
Yeah.
And they do their own thing and they're perfectly happy in that world.
Yeah.
So, but I think there are a lot of people who are socially connected who are also lonely too, who and what do you do to combat that? Like I know when I retired, I joined a bowling league. I mean, you laugh at me, but I joined a bowling league.
And a co-ed bowling league.
Yeah,
too,
co-ed bowling league. And that was out of my comfort zone. But I said to myself, why am I really doing this? Am I looking for new friends? No, not really.
Right.
Am I looking, just try new things, right? This podcast, this is out of my comfort zone. Try something new. See if you like it, see if you don't like it. But it also gives you, like, I feel like I have good, solid friendships that made me not lonely, but I think socially you're much more socially connected than I am. Mm-hmm. So this allows me to socially connect a little more, right? Bowling, the podcast is probably a bad example, and you made fun of me for this, but I went down to the senior center. I think it was a month or 2 months after I retired. I came back from Florida. I said, I'm going to go down to the senior center. There's this guy giving a lecture about a subject I was interested in, and I went down there. And I was It was crazy. I mean, I was the youngest guy by 15 years probably, and I'm not young. So it was, and this guy started giving the lecture. Nothing worked. He couldn't get the projector to work, and people's phones were going off, and it was kind of hilarious. But I'm glad I made the effort to go down there, and maybe I will again in a couple of years, or if something interesting, you know, somebody's giving a lecture on something I'm really interested in. But I don't know. I think reaching out and trying different things, that's more my point, is good. You know, it's a positive.
Yeah, and I joked
After you retire. You know?
I joked about you going to that only because I know our senior center and I know you, and I know that everything that took place was probably going to take place. And you're not the most patient guy in the world. So when the guy was probably trying to fix the projector, got you going or whatever. But I did give you credit for stepping out of your comfort zone on that.
That's not what you told me at the time.
I know. I just told you I knew you weren't going to like it,
Okay.
and I was right on that.
Yeah.
So
I don't think you said it that nicely.
right.
Yeah.
You know, getting back to friendships, I think and we talk a lot about this. If I had to tell people about you and friendships, I look at you as obviously you're extremely close with your family and do a lot of family things. But when it comes to male relationships, I think we talk about it. There's 6 or 7 guys that are really your friends. Those are people that you want to spend time with, you enjoy spending time with. And the reality is you're not really interested in maybe having more friends than that. Where I still have the same type of numbers maybe you have, but the reality is I have a little bit of Andrew McCarthy of connecting with some old friends, not to the extreme that he did, but I'm also even interested in more and I will disagree with something you said earlier, meeting new friends at this age. Yeah, I do have an interest in that. I think there's a lot you can learn from different people, and I think it might be somebody that's just experiencing life the way I am right now that could end up being a friend in the last chapter of my life or whatever. So, I mean, is that a fair assessment of how you look at your friendships?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair assessment. And I think one thing where I might be missing the boat a little is cross-generational relationships, right? I think as you get older, and I was actually talking to my mother-in-law about this, who's almost 90, and a lot of her friends have passed, but she has connected with a lot of younger people, and that's really kept her going, So she has an excellent social life with a lot of younger people. I mean, obviously not older people at this point, but I feel like being friends with even people older than us is good too. You get a different perspective on life. You get some experiences that we haven't gone through yet, even though we're close, to see how they handle those experiences, whether it be health issues, loneliness, or whatever it is,
Right.
So losing a partner or whatever it is. So I feel like I probably am missing the boat a little bit there. And again, like my music, I put myself in a box.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really wanted to spend a lot of time with people older than me. I think that was my own weirdness about elderly people at one point in time, which obviously we're getting close to being elderly in a lot of ways.
So are you scared of yourself at this point? If you're scared of elderly people?
There's 2 things. I actually thought about, a little bit off of what you're doing with the hospice person is, our senior center has a friendly visitors program, and I actually would probably enjoy maybe visiting with an older gentleman, someone in their 70s or 80s, because I think there's a lot you can learn from that. And on the flip side, just because of the way my career is, I have a lot of relationships with young people,
Yep.
and that's something that's going to continue forever.
I've actually asked you about that. I remember when 9/11 happened. I think the first thing that day, one of the first things I did was picked up and my son at that point was in middle school, and my daughter was in high school. But I picked up the phone and asked you, I go, how the hell are they reacting down there about this? What are you saying to the kids?
Yeah.
And your perspective was very, I forget exactly what it was, but I remember it was very interesting. And you've always had that connection with younger, and it kind of shows in your attitude about certain things, which
Sure.
I think is an extreme positive. you know?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy my relationships with the younger kids, and I'm taking on and have taken on a role of a mentor for many, many years. But I enjoy, just someone that pretty well who played basketball. Young Steve Boudreau. I mean, he's still in his late 30s or whatever, but I enjoy just having male conversations with him, not just the mentor-mentee type thing, but just talking about life, getting perspective. I also believe, and I strongly believe this, that my relationship with young people keep me young in a lot of different ways, and it keeps you relevant around lots of different things. And we joke about music and other things, but life in general.
Yeah, I mean, the basketball crew we played with is actually a good example of some cross-generational stuff, right? Although we didn't have too many people older than us, but we had a lot of people younger than us. And when they went out for a couple of beers after we played, it was just interesting to see how they would listen to us, how they would, laugh at something. We would talk about our upcoming colonoscopies or our whatever it was, and they would sit there and roll their eyes, going, "What the hell? I never want to get to this age."
Right.
But other times they would chime in on music, on movies. I mean, a lot of different topics, sports, that they had different perspectives. That was really kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I really think the intergenerational stuff is cool. There were a few people older than us, and whether it be Purple Pete or Bob Ryan or different people like that, and they were a good 10 years older than us, and you could kind of get a little perspective from that. And then we had young people we talk about John McVay, but John McVay's 50 years old now. I mean, remember when John McVay was playing with me when he was 17?
Yeah.
So, the intergenerational friendships are really good too. So, do males need friendships?
Yeah, I think so. I except for that introvert. I mean, if you're the Unabomber, you probably don't. But I think that's a minority of people. So I feel like it's important to have connections. Just if you're having a rough day, if you want to talk about current events, anything, right? I think you need somebody to talk to about stuff other than your wife, probably.
Yeah.
So and your kids. Even though I know my kids like me, I think sometimes they enjoy talking to me. Sometimes they probably don't. But they're going to have a certain perspective that's not going to be totally objective. So I think having a friend is important for those reasons. I mean that's kind of obvious stuff. But how about you? What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I wanted to touch base on this. Is that there's a lot of times of what really a friendship is, and we've had conversations around like, hey, who are the guys that you could actually sit and have heart-to-heart conversations about life, death, or whatever? Or what about the friendships where it's more talking about we just played basketball, or what's up with the Celtics or the Red Sox or something like that? And you would always talk a lot about, like, there's a difference. Like, I look at those as, are they friends? I guess they're friends, but it's not to the level where, you and I have, I'll think of one time where we've, me, you, and Waterboy have sat in the dark listening to music in your house, getting into pretty in-depth stuff. Is that... What's the difference between those two type of friends?
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, I think it takes a history with somebody to know them, to trust them, to divulge kind of your feelings about life. So that doesn't happen overnight. So when I said, I'm not looking for new friends at this age, which I'm probably not, but I think part of the reason is it's hard to build that because it's going to be hard for me to be open and honest with people I don't really know that well. I don't know how much do I trust them. How much, they make me laugh. They not make me laugh. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, right? So I think somebody you can talk about real stuff with, whether it be honesty about how they feel about certain things going on in their families or life in general, or there's not a lot of people you can do that with. I think for the average guy, anyhow, right?
So I kind of push back on that. I think we come from two different schools on that. Like, and maybe it's my career basis of being, a social work counselor type person, but I feel like I can have pretty in-depth conversations with people that I basically just really got to know. Like, I don't have a problem. The trust stuff, I mean, I guess like you got to be careful, or what's that person gonna do with that information or whatever. But I find a lot of young people really kind of picking my brain, and I have no problem kind of really telling them about my life.
Yeah,
and
but that's not friendship. That's when you say somebody's picking your brain.
Yeah, I know it is friendship though. The people I'm talking about are people I consider friends.
But that's mentoring. That's more mentoring than
No.
If they're picking your brain because of your experience or no.
No, I would push back on that.
Okay.
Like the people I'm talking about, I'm not talking about some kid I met at the youth center that I'm mentoring. I'm talking about a young person who I consider a friend, but probably have not had these in-depth conversations before.
Okay.
Which I think in a lot of ways they may be looking to get that, and and I'm probably picking their brain a little bit with that. So, yeah, I would just say the difference between us, I think you're a little more guarded about that stuff than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just said before that you'd be willing to tell somebody, a stranger on a bench, something personal about yourself. And what's going to stop that guy from going to the next guy saying, "Hey, guess what Rick said?"
Yeah,
because you've told me that's happened to you before.
Yeah, it has. But I'm not saying anything that. First of all, the only thing that's going to come out of my mouth is something I wouldn't mind being. I wouldn't have a problem with that being said. I'm not deep dark secrets talking to some people on a park bench or whatever, but I'm a pretty butch of I think I'm an open book. I'm definitely not as guarded as you.
Yeah, that's 100% true. 100%
sure.
true.
So as we wrap up Andrew McCarthy's book, what are you giving it on a stars, 1 to 5?
I really liked it. I don't think it's for everybody, but if you like what we just talked about, some people might not like it, might feel uncomfortable with the subject, might not like it at all. But if you liked what we just talked about, it's definitely a good read, solid read. How many stars would I get out of 5?
Yeah,
I give it 4.4.
Yeah.
How about you?
I mean, that's a good call. I have it tough for me to give anything a straight 5, but I probably got it even higher than a 4.8. If you remember, I didn't think you were going to love it, by the way.
Yeah.
Knowing you and knowing it, I actually said I thought our buddy Waterboy would really like this because he and himself's looking at possibly taking a little bit of a trip for different reasons. But, I thought he would really like it. But I got a lot out of this book. I would actually say that this is not just a male book, by the way. I think, females would get a lot out of this book and understanding a little bit of the male mind on stuff. But, is it going to be number 1 on the New York Times bestseller book, like my favorite book, Now Theo of Golden? No. But, it's been very well received. And, people might want to try to give it a read.
I mean, is it as well written as Theo of Golden? Absolutely not. But
no.
But is it an easy read? It makes you think about stuff. To me, that's a good book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was also pretty cool because I learned a lot about our country, right? And in a lot of ways, he highlights that this is a beautiful country. He went to some strange things like at the Roy Orbison Museum and stuff like that,
which sounded pretty cool.
Yeah, and so there was a travel dynamic to it too, right?
Yeah.
So if you are interested, check this book out. Recommended by the Off the Clock podcast. Andrew McCarthy's Who Needs Friends.
Yeah, just one more thing. I mean, when he talks about going over the West Virginia mountains, and so I'm traveling down to see my son in South Carolina, actually leaving tomorrow, and we're making a few stops. But after reading that book, I was thinking, geez, what's holding us off from going west? I've never seen the West Virginia mountains. That'd be really cool. Now, I'm not going to do what he did and zigzag all across the United States, and we probably won't do that. But that's it was enticing. Some of the scenario and down by the Grand Canyon, when he talks about the Grand Canyon, some of the views he said were totally insane. And for going 10,000 miles, he didn't love driving, but some of the sites he said were crazy.
Yeah, and by the way, he didn't do it on highways. It was all back roads and things like that. So 4.4 and a 4.8 on the stars from the Off the Clock podcast for Andrew McCarthy's Who Need Friends. All right, let's jump into our quick brewery review. You are our expert. What are we talking about this week?
Well, we're talking. Yeah, and this came unexpected. I wasn't really that prepared for this. You said today, hey, do you have your brewery review? And I said, well, some people told me not to do it. So, but I think enough people said to keep doing it.
And
so
more of our responses was do it.
Yep. So we're traveling down to as I said, I'm visiting my son down in North Carolina, and 2 grandsons and his wife. So we're leaving tomorrow, and on Friday we're stopping at Vale Brewery in Richmond, Virginia. So it's actually, to me, it's the best brewery I've ever been to, and that includes Treehouse and includes all the big breweries around here, Vermont. So
why is it the best?
the beers is all right, and that's a good point too, because somebody highlighted the fact I didn't talk about what type of beers I really like, and that's important because I like the New England IPAs, right, which are kind of heavy, kind of hoppy, and this place has the best menu of IPAs I think I've ever had in my life. So there's one called the White Ferrari that you can sometimes get on tap around here. I know nobody listening to this is going to travel down to North Carolina and go, but this once in a while you see some of these beers on draft. And again, it's Veil, and that's my speech impediment. It's VEIL, and that White Ferrari is a big one, and they have another one called Dirt Nap, which is my favorite one from there. But it's a great brewery, and it's in a really cool section of Richmond. People probably don't know Richmond that well, but it's called, I want to say it's Scott's something, Scott's County or Scott's, but it's a really cool kind of young, vibrant place.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you love that place and looking forward to hitting back there again.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the nights that we're heading down there, we specifically mapped that out to stop there just for the brewery. Now that cuts my wife a little short, but this place did have. I don't know if they served wine. They might have served wine. I'm not sure about that though. Sometimes she brings in a roadie. Don't tell anybody. So yeah, she won't want that getting out, but sometimes she does.
All right, look good for that.
Okay.
My contribution this week is not a brewery. I want to follow up on something regarding the topic today. So last Saturday night over at the famous tavern on the Merrimack, getting a little bite to eat, and on Saturday nights, we used to be there on Thursday nights. They'd have a couple of, 1 or 2 guys singing, acoustic set, that type of thing. And then they have karaoke one night, and we were really good with they had a trivia night that was very impressive. But on Saturday nights, they have live bands, and sitting there listening to this band they call Less Than Zero. All guys, 5-piece band. They got a bassist, a guitarist, a drummer, a keyboardist, and they have a horn player. And the horn player might have been one of their sons. He looked like he was in his 30s. But all these guys were our age. All people retired / still working. But one of the things that was a big take from me was how much they enjoyed playing with each other. And, a part of me was thinking about Andrew's book and like the friendships, and obviously they have a common interest in music. And by the way, I'll defer to Waterboy, our music expert, but they did seem very talented musicians. 3 different guys sang, and they were great. But the observation for me was these guys really liked playing with each other. They were a good sound. I enjoyed the band. And the reality is I sat there and said, they've got a niche in their next chapter, and it'll be based on, they're not going to sign a record deal, but these are guys that'll play in pubs. I heard they're in Gloucester this weekend. So check them out at some point to see a group of guys that are our age that are, finding a niche in music and enjoying each other's company. So that's my contribution this week. So we're heading into, we discussed this a lot. I'm sure down the road there'll be a big, larger discussion. But one of the things we talked about, and some of the feedback from people were hysterically laughing that we're actually big-time rom-com people. So we're going to add today, I asked you to bring in your top 5 rom-coms of all time, my top 5. We haven't even shared this, so we might have the same, we might have different. I know personally for me, getting it down to 5 was extremely hard. So, Scotty, your top 5 rom-coms.
Yeah, we need a drum beat or something. This is really exciting. So, yeah, there we go. That sounds good. Are we going to, my top 5 real quick?
Yeah, just
Okay.
and maybe touch base on anyone that really, I think if people were paying attention last week, we know what probably your number 1 is, but go ahead.
No, I think I'm going to throw a curveball here.
Ooh, okay.
And that's a hint, by the way. So I would say Fever Pitch is my number 1.
Fever Pitch?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it has the Red Sox stuff, and just, in my opinion, well done. I'm not going to go into detail about Fever Pitch.
And that's,
but
if I'm correct, that's Drew Barrymore in that?
that is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And who's? I'm terrible at. And who's
The guy was...
Jeez, he has his own.
I see his face right
yeah,
now.
and he has his own. My wife's going to kill me.
Was it Jimmy Kimmel?
No,
it was...
no.
All right. People will look that up. Fever Pitch.
Fever Pitch. Number 2, Serendipity. Just well done. Proposal.
Wait, so Fever Pitch was your number 1?
Number 1.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
And how I judge it, if it's on a channel I switch the channel. And I never switch it for Fever Pitch. I never switch it for Serendipity. I never switch it for number 3, The Proposal, which, excellent movie. There's a funny story about that, too. My wife and I went to see that at the movie theater. And we said, wow, the scenery in that was unbelievable. We really need to go to Alaska.
Yeah.
And we started saying, wow, it was beautiful. Then we read something like a month later. It was all shot in Rockport. And we're sitting there going, oh, I guess we can visit Rockport.
Anytime you want.
We just saved some money. So, yeah. Number 3 is A Holiday. And again, that one I will sometimes watch, sometimes not watch if I'm just randomly flipping. And Notting Hill, the bookstore one. That I always liked that one. So
that's number 5 for you?
Yep, that's number 5.
How hard was it getting to 5?
I'm trying to think what I left out. There were a few I left out. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is we only share one. I'll go the opposite direction.
Wow.
At number 5, I have a classic from back in the day, Pretty Woman. Obviously, one of the first rom-coms I really got involved in, obviously with Julia and Richard Gere, good cast. The butler or whatever, the concierge from the hotel, I forget what his name was, great character. But number 4 I have, and I'm a huge fan of this, and I'm not sure it's in anybody else's top 5, but Silver Linings Playbook with Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence. I love the whole scenario around the whole thing. The supporting cast was hilarious too. Number 3, I got Crazy Stupid Love. Another really good one. And number 2, and this can sometimes be a number 1 for me, and I watch it every Christmas, and that's Love Actually. It's a movie I probably watch not just at Christmas, probably 2 other times during the year. If it's ever on TV, kind of like what you talked about, I'm definitely watching it. And number 1, I'm going to stick with your number 2 with Serendipity. I think for a lot of reasons that one just really hits home. I was actually intrigued to know why many people didn't have it in its top 50. And the reason is that, and I read some documentation on this, that Serendipity is not considered a classic rom-com because of fate and that whole aspect, and not being really based on just true love.
Wow, that's really getting down to the weeds.
Yeah, I can fight back on that.
Yeah,
so I think most of the people I know are huge Serendipity fans too. So
how many people are rolling their eyes right now saying, well, you guys just
Well,
sign
probably the same as the guys that were rolling their eyes in the bar the night we were talking about it. We were with a couple of the cats, but I remember there was a table of 2 guys. We have this same table all the time that we go to. It was a table of 2 guys, and I think they just looked at us and said, are these guys serious? Are they? And we were just really into it, arguing it. Same with you. I had a couple of tough ones that I had to omit. I had Notting Hill as one of the ones was tough to omit. My best friend's wedding, Love and Basketball, kind of probably for the same reason you got Fever Pitch. Say Anything, and then Must Love Dogs. Those were a few other ones that couldn't have made it, but I'm sure other people have even other more. So just to wrap this up on the rom-com, why do we like rom-coms?
I don't know. Let's not delve too deep into that question.
No, but when have you always?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. They just feel good, easy to watch.
Feel good movie.
Yeah.
And your significant other at any time likes.
I'm a very emotional guy, so I enjoy tearing up.
I'm not sure I see that, but I agree. I mean, I think that the feel-good stuff, it's good. So there may be something in the future on rom-coms. We'll see. Again, thank you for the people that suggested on topics. We got some really good topics, and as I said last week, we're going to actually bring in some guests in the next few weeks. We're gonna be on hiatus for about 2 weeks because Scott is taking another vacation, which he alluded to earlier. So, hoping you have a really good vacation, and we'll be talking via text on what our next topic will be, and we'll be back out here in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
Any final parting words from you?
I got nothing. I think this has been longer than I anticipated, so I think it's time to wrap it up.
You're so hung up on time. We're at 44:37 right now.
Well,
I told
we have
our
23
listeners
seconds.
we
23
were gonna
seconds
be
to go.
about 45.
Okay, there we go.
So again, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Keep trying to give us a chance. I think we're going to be okay down the road. As we wrap up, I'm Rick Gorman. He's Scott Chandler, and we are off the clock.
Thanks,
Take care,
guys.
everybody.
Take care.